Whenever a new Assassin's Creed comes around, the conversation inevitably loops back to the same question. Hey, remember how great that one with the pirates was? Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag is the last game my friends who lapsed on the series have played. It's the one whose hero, Edward Kenway, sits high on the best of lists. It's the one that spawned 2 remarkable spin-offs and inspired a whole game that's just the ship combat. Black Flag was a cultural moment, and Resynced isn't just a full remake of that juggernaut, but Ubisoft Singapore's celebration of the original's well-earned reputation. With new graphics, revamped combat both in melee and on the high seas, and retooled exploration and stealth systems, it's bigger and better in all the ways that matter. The most obvious upgrade is in how Resynced looks. Ubisoft's Anvil engine is a clear step up with 2026 textures and physics, adding depth to hair, skin, and clothes that just couldn't be done in 2013, and all at a smooth 60 frames per second on my PC. The bigger cities you'll be visiting are bustling with people, and the wilderness is dense with lush foliage. Like with last year's Assassin's Creed Shadows, Resynced also has some pretty remarkable wind, water, and weather effects. Bringing Black Flag in line with modern Assassin's Creed design also adds some much-needed modesty to the world map. Previously, your map was littered with icons marking things to do and find in distracting abundance. The more discovery-focused approach introduced in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where non-quest related points of interest don't show up until you observe them from sync points or in direct proximity to them, helps keep the map from being overwhelming, but also encourages you to actually explore. Traveling through this refreshed and remixed world is enhanced by Resynced's updated free-running mechanics. It may not seem too different from what you remember at a glance, but I revisited the original Black Flag just before this review, and there's a handful of modern tweaks here and there that make it noticeably a better experience. Parkour runs transition from one move to the next much more smoothly. You can change directions far faster, and bolder path markings mean that there's less trial and error when it comes to jumping from step to step.
Damn this wall.
It has the breeziness of Assassin's Creed Mirage, but it also does retain a little too much of the stickiness that came from AC games of the original's era, where a good running sequence can come to a stop because you hit a jump just slightly wrong.
Morning all. Ahoy, Kenway.
Edward Kenway's story is one of the most beloved in the series for a good reason. It's filled with memorable characters, consequential twists and turns, and some great writing and acting. It was unconventional for its time, a selfish pirate in pursuit of glory who has to be dragged into the conflict between assassins and Templar, kicking and screaming, and at great personal loss. 13 years later, there still aren't many stories that break the mold in quite the same way in the series. It's still easily a top 3 Assassin's Creed adventure, and I wouldn't put it at 3.
Lay aboard, lads!
The story has even gotten some additional love, mostly in some extra cutscenes that expand on certain moments with characters like Blackbeard.
Or if a man plays the fool, then it's only fools he'll persuade, but appear to be the devil. And all men will submit.
As well as a brand new endgame chapter that lets you tie up a loose end related to a character that never saw any justice for his crimes in the original. A few quests were reworked to make them a bit more open-ended as well. Some of these adjustments won't stand out as new if you haven't played the original recently, but as someone who has, changes like this can help speed up choke points in the story's pacing that felt more like busy work than swashbuckling. Gone completely are the present-day interludes where you would tiptoe around the Abstergo offices to try to sabotage the evil Templar Corporation from within. Instead, those glyphs scattered around the map from the original now contribute to the various meta-progression systems in the new Animus Hub project, which Ubisoft first introduced in Assassin's Creed Shadows. Finding floating glyphs in the wild to earn points and level up what mostly amounts to a glorified battle pass isn't my idea of fun, but Resynced does at least take an admirable step in the right direction. You can now enter special rifts that serve as some unique platforming puzzles and act as a backdrop for a story between a voice locked in the Animus that wants to show you the truth, and the Animus itself attempting to trap you inside forever. It doesn't really go anywhere definitive, and it's kind of a bummer to see the present-day story sort of be abandoned wholesale, but I am interested to see how this rift idea develops in future games. We take it for granted now, but it's genuinely hard to believe that Assassin's Creed didn't have a dedicated crouch button in 2013, and I was there. The addition of 1 to Resynced really does change Black Flag's stealth dynamics, even if some layouts and soldier patrols were adjusted to accommodate that newfound freedom. Being able to duck behind cover without having to press against it to break line of sight really helps you stay hidden while scouting ahead. You also no longer have to awkwardly sprint from stalking zone to stay undetected. Something as simple as crouching allows for so many more ways to remain unseen that other, more outside-the-box ways to solve problems actually get undermined, like the so-called social stealth of blending into crowds, hiring distractions, or scattering money around on the ground. I never really thought about how little I've used these options after Assassin's Creed Unity, where the crouch was first introduced, even though they've existed in some form in almost every game since. But going back in time like this really puts this conflict of systems in stark relief.
That'll put a dent in the Templar's ranks.
Tools like darts and smoke bombs and distractions like whistles are quicker and easier to access thanks to Resynced's modern HUD and menus. And the now series standard visibility and alert meters are better at helping you stay anonymous. These quality of life features make Edward all the craftier, but his foes have not evolved in similar ways to meet the moment. They can still see pretty far distances and will reliably be suspicious if you're not making your best effort to remain hidden. In stealth sections, especially in urban areas, guards are everywhere with lots of roaming patrols that overlap their vision areas with static sentries, which makes moving around at the right time imperative. But despite all that, it can take quite a while for them to be alerted and spring into action, and the extended time they spend in that yellow curious state makes them very easy to manipulate. Some of the stealth-based activities like eavesdropping sequences have been updated as well. The old version of them, which required you to stick to a listenable zone of a pair of characters, had its issues. But what's replaced them in the more recent AC games, just pressing a button once you've got close enough to hear them, really dissolves any intrigue or attempt at immersion that this activity was supposed to create. The old style needed work, but I sorely miss the engagement it provided now that those sections have been replaced with the throwaway versions in Resynced. When stealth eventually fails, it's time to draw steel and brawl. To its ultimate benefit, the Overhauled combat here brings Black Flag confidently into the modern era. Spamming light attack strings still makes Edward a dual-wielding dervish, but now enemies have posture bars to wear down instead of just health. Quick hits in conjunction with new heavy attack finishers empty these bars quickly, making most enemies vulnerable to instant one-button takedowns that you can chain to nearby enemies. The new parry works like the old counter button, but instead of simply displacing enemies, it breaks posture and opens them up while also keeping Edward safe. Bad guys often come in limited variety but large numbers, and most are pretty good at defending basic attacks head-on. Resynced gets rid of the one-no break defenses button and gives Edward some tricks to overcome these turtles, like sweeping their legs and opening them up for a final coup de grace, or using a powerful Odyssey-inspired kick to knock people into walls or off of ledges. Quick selecting your tools also lets you break a combo to simply shoot a guy directly in the face, or rope dart a man from across the room, Mortal Kombat style. Against tougher enemies and bigger groups, or when you take advantage of the new difficulty settings to increase the challenge a bit, this all really comes together to create a relatively simple but satisfying combat where each of your options feels useful and necessary for success. That said, fights are also less cinematic overall. I do think it was ultimately a trade-up for Resynced to have the more legible and interactive combat system, but it did come at a cost. As 1700s era piracy demands, sometimes you and 30 of your friends need to get on a brig and use cannons in order to settle some of the differences with the local Imperial naval presence. Black Flag's evolution of the sailing systems introduced in Assassin's Creed 3 was always the standout part of this experience, and it's back and better in every way in Resynced. Each of the 4 main ways to attack, broadside cannons, long-range mortars, sail-ripping chain shot, and explosive fire barrels, now have secondary firing options unlockable through quest rewards. I got a lot of use out of the heated shots option for the broadsides, which has a shorter attack range but is absolutely devastating in comparison to the regular round shot, thanks to its high chance to leave exploitable weak points that can be shot again with your swivel guns to pile on even more damage. Swivel guns themselves act more like the ones from Assassin's Creed Rogue, where you hold to aim your crosshairs over the target and they automatically shoot, as opposed to the more sluggish QTE prompts of the old style. Ships can get some brand new abilities now too, thanks to some of the new naval officers that can be recruited. These abilities are very strong, like the shipwright's Perfect Brace, which allows you to block extra damage if you press the brace button right when an attack hits your ship. And with high enough hull armor, you might negate it completely. This was a vital addition that really helped me survive some of the hairier encounters towards the middle and end of the campaign without having to grind money to simply overlevel my way out of trouble. The new enemy behavior and weather effects were most apparent out on the seas as well. Spanish, English, and pirate ships fight one another on a regular basis, allying with each other in different configurations based on the situation. And for every time I saw two factions trading fire, I'd see a group of ships flying the same flag traveling peacefully through the ocean.
They could never catch me. Got you!
While the original Black Flag holds up well enough that it probably wouldn't have been my first pick for an Assassin's Creed remake, sailing the high seas, sending other tubs to Davy Jones Locker, uncovering ancient secrets, and asking, what does this have to do with me getting rich exactly, have made it clear that Resynced was a necessary second pass over one of the best games in the series. More than just a facelift, it also brings Black Flag's systems and sensibilities up to today's standards. Both land and sea combat have been bolstered by new tricks that add depth and clarity to all the action. The top-tier story of the Kenway patriarch proves it's beloved for a reason, with extra content that further fleshes out certain character moments.
And there I am, a man of quality.
Missions have been adjusted and restructured just enough to take advantage of the mostly smart updates to parkour and stealth. Even where it stumbles, like its long-standing issues with overly sticky free-running or sometimes dumb enemies, it never feels like a step backwards. As a result, there's never been a better time or better way to return to the Golden Age of Piracy.
Reviews director Tom Marks here with Jarrett Green, our reviewer of Resynced, to talk a little bit more about his taste across the series, because you've been reviewing AC games for us for a little while now, at least like 4 or 5 years. You didn't review Valhalla, but you did review its DLC, you reviewed Mirage for us and its DLC, Shadows and its DLC, and then other sort of action-adventure games like Dragon's Dogma 2, that sort of stuff. But talk to me a little bit about like what you like about this series, what appeals to you about it, how long you've been playing the games in the series, all that stuff.
I think I had the same appeal to Assassin's Creed everybody did in like 2007, which was like, wow, I can just walk around like a man ghost and do cool assassin-y things and parkour across, the ancient Middle East. That sounds like a great idea. And the series has gone through iterations, and it kind of has eras now. It's been around so long and changed so much. And I know a lot of people have come in and out of the series, but there's still something about that particular brand of like action adventure as it relates to stealth, or as it sort of incorporates stealth, that you really don't get anywhere else. Or rather, if you see it anywhere else, it's attempting to do what Assassin's Creed did. Any game like it has been Assassin's Creed, with the exception of like The Witcher, in which case there's been sort of an inversion where every Assassin's Creed game after The Witcher 3 has been The Witcher 3 in some way. Yeah, I think there's something about this particular style of action adventure and stealth that really appeals to me in a way that really can't find exactly like this anywhere else. And there was also like the fantasy and historical fiction, plus like this weird future sci-fi thing that was also pretty cool that isn't there anymore, but still interesting.
Do you have a peak of the series for you? Do you have the what's the top of the heap if you had to pick?
It's funny because they're all, I think my favorite entries in the series are my favorite for different reasons. I was always a 3 truther. Like I know people don't like 3. I feel
3
like
introduced the pirate stuff.
It introduced the pirate stuff. I think 3 is kind of misunderstood as a sequel to like the Ezio trilogy. Ezio is such a lively, charismatic character. Like old Rome is like such an interesting place. But like a story from the perspective of a person being colonized during the like American Revolution is like a dour one. So like Connor's kind of a dour guy, but Haytham Kenway's such an interesting guy who's also like a giant jerk. Like there's such a dynamic there. And like a really interesting historical fiction of the American Revolution that we don't really get, having really gotten sense and don't really get up into that point, that I think Assassin's Creed 3 really stands the test of time in. Is it like a weird kind of buggy, glitchy attempt at like stepping parkour and combat into new places that wasn't quite there yet? Absolutely. But I'm a big fan of it. I also, I was always a big fan of Origins. I don't love Odyssey as much as everyone else does, but also like Valhalla more than I think a lot of people do. For various reasons. Like, I'm all over the place. As a person who plays all of these, I definitely seem to have like, not necessarily the mainstream opinion about all.
So like I think the one people point to a lot as like the thing that, is the AC game that people adore is AC2, or like that sort of lineage, as you said, of Ezio. How do you feel about AC2 in general?
I think AC2 gets the credit it deserves because it kind of is. The first game was divisive because it felt unfinished, right? And maybe it was unfinished. Rumor was it maybe it was unfinished. But AC2 is the fantasy realized. It's not just like the locations you're tiptoeing around are like bare bones. Versus Altair, Ezio can do so many more things. He has such a relationship with history, like Da Vinci's his best friend. Stuff like that, like that sets the tone for the rest of the series in a way the first game doesn't. But I think like a lot of things that were made, 15, 20 years ago, I think we've done them better.
Sure.
And I think we've done AC2 better. And maybe even in Black Flag might be like the case of doing AC2 better. Because not every game is exactly that, but every game is pointing at AC2 and saying, remember when we did this? Like Unity does a lot of that too. So yeah, no shade on AC2. I think it deserves all the credit it gets. But I think I have found better versions or games that appeal more to me in this series since then.
What do you think your favorite era was? Where, like gameplay wise specifically, do you prefer when it was really about assassinations and stealth, or do you like when it was these 100+ hour RPGs?
I think I prefer the narrow scope of the assassination stuff. And I know that 2 and the sequels to 2 and 3 and even Black Flag and Rogue and Freedom Cry, like that kind of group of games kind of exists in a time of limitation. Like they couldn't do these big things, so they kind of have to work around these. But especially playing modern games and specifically playing them remaking 4 has like really caused me to interrogate some of the things they changed to make it modern, but what you lose from these old games in the process. Like even though Resynced is an attempt to focus on stealth more than normal or more than games before it, it really doesn't do it the same way the original did, because the original still had to sort of interact and engage with stealth in a way that made stealth more dangerous, because you only had so many options. I miss when there were more hardcore stealth games. But I also like that they're kind of swashbuckling action RPGs too. So like I kind of like both. If I had to choose one, it'd be the old ones, but like I don't really want to lose these either.
Well, Jarrett, thank you so much for chatting with us a little bit more about your history with the series and all that jazz. Always great to talk with you. If you want another chat with Jarrett, the last one we had a conversation at the end of was your review of Heroes of Might and Magic Olden Era. And then if you want a different sort of action-y adventure game, Jarrett, you also recently reviewed the Gothic 1 remake. So you're doing a lot of remakes right now.
Revisits of old Slavic games. That's who I am.
That's your new niche.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much, and for everything else, stick with IGN.